Welcome back to the Way to Wellness podcast, where we're finding balance season by season. I am Selina Uglow, owner and founder of The Way to Healthy Living, and I welcome you into this space as we bring this podcast series to close, just to really talk to you in the journey that you have just been on. In this series, we've asked you to kind of slow down and really honestly sit with yourself. That is such an important part of reducing the noise and all of the chaos of our everyday life and addressing how the changes that have come forward in our life, how our roles have changed, perhaps, or maybe how things didn't work out exactly how we wanted them to, or maybe even it's not like you wake up one day 20 pounds heavier, right? That 20 pounds is a gradual process of stress to comfort to convenience to losing the self-care or even losing self. And now that we are right here, because that is all that matters, how are we? Who are we? And what do we want for ourselves out of the coming year? 12 months is a long time. But 4 weeks flies by, 3 months becomes a past, 6 months becomes an oh crap, we're already halfway there, and we're right back at the holidays again. So I'm not really asking you to create an entire journey. What we've encouraged you to do in this limited series podcast, The Way to Wellness, is to come into yourself and really get right with what you want out of your life and what you have control over in changing. Whether or not that's doing things differently in small shifts, because it is absolutely unrealistic to make large changes. There are too many ripples around us for us to decide in a family of 5 that all of a sudden I'm going vegetarian. Because when you do things like that, you don't take into account how everybody in your life is affected as well. And then you get friction. And friction creates fallout. And fallout creates failure. This conditions us to be committed to ourselves, to find our right consistency where we can practice an 80-20 change. It also conditions everyone else around us to be acceptable or to be accepting of our change. And it applies a real approach in everyday life. We can certainly accomplish whatever we want to accomplish if everyone would just go away and stop living and breathing around us for 3 months. And while you're at it, if you could add to our pocketbook, that would be really great, because I could get a lot done with a lot of money. But the reality is that everything has to be slow and steady. So whether or not that's getting in the exercise that you need so that you can move more, or just becoming more mindful of the diet that you're taking in, or owning the energy in and around you, that is super important, right? Because it's about recognizing your needs. And also, here's a great part to tell you that as you make these small shifts, your needs are going to change. You're going to need to do this process repeatedly when you recognize that you have to reground yourself. What are some of the signs? Well, when those things that seem difficult to do become very normal, let's say like drinking more water. My recommendation to clients is always 1/3 of their body weight in fluid ounces of water a day, unless they have a water restriction due to a heart condition. And sometimes people will come to me and they'll be like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Okay, why not? Well, I don't like the taste of water. Okay, well, I get that. But you're made up of 76% water, and your discs in your back are made of water. So if you have back pain and you don't hydrate well, that's probably the cause. And if you feel stiff and sore all the time, also probably the cause. If you think that you're addicted to sugar, like most people in today's world do, probably dehydrated because your body doesn't know the difference between dehydrated and hungry. And if you're tired, if you have a lot of fatigue, probably dehydrated because your body is working like a dried up sponge trying to walk across a water world. So then they come back and they say, wow, I didn't know that it would be so easy. Because maybe what I told them to do was to put hair ties or rubber bands on a water bottle. And every time they refilled it, they just moved the water bottle or the hair tie down so that when their water bottle, right, had all three hair ties down, they know they met their mark and they didn't have to track anything and they didn't have to really pay too much attention and they didn't have to log it in an app because that's an extra step to do. They just moved the hair ties down. And then they no longer needed the hair ties. Now you're different when that happens. Now you can add another layer. Maybe water was the biggest tackle you had to do out of all of the things we've talked about. And now that you've tackled that, what's next? You don't get rid of the water. You just add another something that is an easy shift to do. Like maybe increasing the value of your breakfast intake. A lot of people struggle with mid-morning or mid-afternoon crashes, and a lot of times that has a lot to do with our fuel. Energy is a big complaint in the world today. Yet nobody talks about the hydration factor of it, and no one talks about the fueling of it. They just think that they need another supplement or perhaps a medication, or with medical anxiety, something is wrong with them. But at the end of the day, the thing that we can control is our hydration and our nutrition. So maybe the next small shift that you make is to beef up your breakfast and go from that grabbing a bagel and cream cheese to maybe grabbing a yogurt. Or if you want additional protein, and I'm not a big one on protein. I'm all about balance. So you don't want equal amounts of protein and fat because then fat becomes your sludge system. So you do an egg scramble with some egg whites and you have a higher level of protein and you have a smaller ratio of fat to that. Because carbohydrates, they're your energy. They're what you live off of. They're what you think off of. Your brain uses 25% of your fuel. Let me say that again. If you're on a journey with me and you're listening to this because you're stuck up in fatigue or mental fog and you think something's wrong with you, or you want to manage your weight better, or you don't want to hurt so much, it all starts with water and fuel. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. And I don't care what gender you are. It is the basis of who you are. You can't go out in the parking lot and get in your car with no gas and drive 30 miles without it running out of steam. It's going to sit dead on the road. But you have this incredible machine that you look at in the mirror every single day, and it's all based on your fuel. And it's so cool because it adjusts to you. So if you don't fuel it enough, here's a sad thing you don't want to hear. It causes you to store more fat because fat is your low and slow burning reserve. In the last 13 years, 98% of my clients, mostly middle-aged females, have all had to eat more food. Whole thing, 100% of the men who have worked with me and lost significant weight and got significant lean muscle have all had to eat more food. They're not fueling properly. You don't fuel properly, your body doesn't do what it's supposed to do because it's a self-regulating mechanism. Your car runs out of gas, it stops at the road, and it waits for more gas. Your body doesn't have that option. It isn't designed that way. It's why a lot of weightlifters who overindulge in protein thinking it's going to make them better end up with kidney stones, because when they take in too much of what their body needs, their bodies spill out calcium, and that creates kidney stones. That calcium comes from bone. It's a cool thing that nobody has taught us to work with. In fact, I would say that most of the industry teaches us to hate everything about our bodies so that you will pay someone else to tell you how to have a better one, right? That's the attitude piece. Let's check in there. You got to love where you are. You're here. You're incredible. It's your starting point. It's not something to resist or regret. It's something to work with. You want it to be better? Learn to work with it. If you go into an employer-employee situation and you don't like any of your coworkers, how does that play out with you? Not very well. Either you hate your job or you get fired, because there's a lot of rift there, right? Well, this right here, this is your day-to-day job. And if you start just in the frame of mind that, okay, I know why we're here. I know what about me I want to change. And instead of resisting all the things I don't like, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to learn to work with it a little bit better. So if I don't like my weight, I'm going to stop buying clothes I wish I would fit into. And I'm going to start buying clothes that I actually look good in, so I feel good when I go in front of that full-length mirror. By the way, you want a little tip on always taking good care of yourself? Replace the mirrors that only show you from here up, which generally doesn't carry the weight, with at least one full-length mirror in the house. You know what that does? That holds you accountable to the small and little changes that one day became the desire to not like yourself anymore. How many full-length mirrors do we look at? And when we don't like what we look like, then we basically avoid pictures. But guess what? It's okay to reflect on something that you don't want to be. That's your motivator. That's not your sticking point. That's your motivator. And you didn't get there overnight. So stop waiting for something that's going to give you something different in 24 or 48 hours. 20 pounds in a year is the most realistic expectation for weight loss. That gives you a good work-life balance. Okay? And I don't mean work as in you're getting paid for it. I mean, there's a balance between the work that you want to do to be you and the life that you don't want to miss out on living. Because there are absolutely no guarantees of what the timeline left is. So why am I going to waste it eating rabbit food and apples and all that clean stuff and missing out on French fries once in a while if tomorrow my obituary is in the paper because I went to sleep and didn't wake up? That's not my gig. If that's for you, awesome. But approaching wellness in a fashion of work-life balance is so essential to enjoying the journey. So if I'm going to do all of this work Monday through Friday to do the self-care and do the planning and protect my energies and address my attitude and be mindful in my activities and create my healthy boundaries, I'm not going to put it all to bed on Friday and go willy-nilly freedom until Monday morning. A lot of people do that. If I'm working to find my voice, and that's part of my path to wellness, to peace and balance and well-being, I'm not going to say no to someone and then apologize myself out of a no. You know what I'm talking about? Someone says, "Hey, you're really good. You've decided I'm going to practice the self-care, Selena. I'm going to put myself on my own list. I'm going to make these priorities. I'm going to do this breath work." And then your kids come along and they're like, "Hey, mom, you're retired. Can you watch my kids from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday?" Oh, um, I really can't. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, "Well, maybe." Maybe I could do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Or um no, I can't. And I'm so sorry. I mean, I know I'm not really there for you. And gosh, I wish I could be better, but I just can't give you that time. What is that doing to your inside? Absolutely nothing good. Stop apologizing with apology. Right? Right? Here we go. Come to the point where you say no for their benefit. You know what? As a grandmother, I cherish the time with my kids. But I recognize if I say yes to you, that I'm kind of going to move into the role of a babysitter and perhaps maybe even become intrusively involved in your parenting style. And is that the healthiest thing for us? I don't think it is. And I also recognize that I'm at a time in my life where I want to do some other things and take care of myself. And I always want my experiences with my grandkids to be positive and a blessing. And I really don't feel like I have the energy to watch your children, but I can help you find suitable daycare. What a difference that is. That's a big example. Here's an example of a small ask. Maybe you belong to a group that needs leadership and you love just participating in a group. I love showing up and participating in a fitness class. And then sometimes the instructors who know that I teach total body fitness will say, "Hey, can you show us something?" And my best line always is, "Gosh, that would be a great thing for me to do right now. But energetically, I would not be giving you my best. So I'm going to go ahead and decline." Did you hear an apology? No. Am I walking away from that in shame? Absolutely not. Do I question whether or not I said yes? All the time. Any good person is going to wear the weight of no in their heart and on their mind. That's not the point to change. The key is to stop talking yourself out of the no. You get to that through the simple practice of pausing before you answer anyone or anything. Are you ready? We're going to practice. When I say, how are you doing today? I want you to take a breath. And then I want you on your side of the screen or listening to me to answer out loud. I don't want you to answer immediately. I know you already know the answer because you know the question. I want you to take a full breath and I want you to answer out loud. How are you today? I'm fine. Felt really weird, didn't it? I know you're nodding. It's really important for us to allow space in our lives. We've become a society where we feel like we need to fill every void of silence with something, and that is absolutely not necessary. And it also clouds our judgment. It keeps us from saying the things that we truly need to say to create healthy boundaries and to prioritize ourselves. So, the best way to learn how to do that, as oddly as it is done, is that in the next 4 days, let's do 4 days. When people ask you for things, instead of immediately offering an answer, Take a breath. You can look like you're thinking, but I want you to take a breath. This brings you to you. And if it is an ask from someone else that you need to say no to, it also gives you the ability to commit to yourself that thou shalt not apologize. So, whatever your answer is when you say no, it's not with an apology, it's with gratitude. Thank you so much for asking me. I really don't have the energy to give you my best, which I know is what you would want. I just made it all about you, didn't I? When in actuality, I made it about me. I just didn't let you know that. And when we go out into the world and we tell people how busy we are, that is not a good label. That is a negative label. Let's say, thanks for asking. My life is so productive right now. I really don't see that fitting in. Maybe you could ask Karen. The best thing about saying no is you are opening the door in the space for someone else who actually wants to say yes. We are a society of convenience. And you know who gets asked all the time? The easy yes. So if you are the easy yes, stop being that person. Because there is someone else around you or in the circular network that is just waiting for the chance to grow in that area of yes. And quite honestly, a lot of people say to me, well, if I don't do it, then it's not going to get done. Well, okay, then I'll say to you, is it yours to carry? And pretty much a lot of the time, because it isn't your ask, it's also not yours to carry. So if it doesn't get done, I get it. It can be hard to let that go. But you got to start saying no somewhere, because it's all about making room for more of what you want. We can't ever get grounded and reflective and start shifting if we're constantly in a state of just doing and reacting. And so it really does start with asking ourselves to come to a point where we stop carrying the regret and the resentment of feeling overwhelmed, and we start setting some fine boundaries by practicing a good no. It's wonderful. It's kind of like receiving. I'm not a good receiver. I'm a terrible receiver, actually. I love gifting, though. I can totally be Santa Claus all day long. And then one day I realized that me receiving something from someone was not really a gift to me. It was a gift to them. As humans, we do a lot of things for other people that we would like them to do for us. And when they receive that, it's our gift. And so when I think about in that bread and butter mantra I talked about, kind of finding compassion and perspective, when I step back and I take that breath of practice that I've asked you to do, I can totally see where the need is. And I can be a part of filling it without giving any more of my time or energy. And I use receiving as an example of that. Regrounding doesn't have to be a week-long vacation. Regrounding doesn't have to be a day off for mental health. Regrounding can simply happen by putting into practice the little tips and tricks that we've given you throughout this series. Whether or not it's having your own mantra that you post and put everywhere. I love putting it in my day planner, on my phone, at my computer, around my desk. I need visual reminders and I need personal accountability to practice what I have decided I wanted for myself and to keep me grounded in the actions to get me there. It can be a 10-minute practice in the beginning of my day where I'm just going to get myself collected, read a little of inspiration instead of the bad news, write a little gratitude, close it with the to-done list. Regrounding is also being very honest with myself about where I am so that I can really celebrate the successes that I've had and say to myself, okay, now that I've developed these habits, what else do I want to accomplish? Because it's endless. Like the opportunities are endless. And it's all about where you want to go. And it's recognizing that nothing about this life is static. It's all dynamic. It's amazing to me when I have weight loss clients who lose 20 pounds and then they get frustrated because they hit a plateau. And then we sit down and I'm like, well, your activity level's different. Your food intake is different. You're mentally different. So it's time for us to rewrite the program. Well, this worked. Well, it worked for you then. That's key. It worked for you then. How you handled your boss 5 years ago when you started your job, that worked for you then. You're a different person. You've gained a different level of respect and responsibility. You've identified some of the self-value issues that you had that gave you a little bit of a voice. So what worked for you then to get the promotion, that might not work for you now. How do you know what works for you now? You got to sit with yourself. You got to do that practice regularly. Starts with honesty, self-reflection, questions. Conflict is a big part of inhibiting factors to us actually doing what we want because we as human kindness never really want to manage conflict. And I get it. But what if it wasn't really conflict? What if that's the attitude and the perception that you're bringing into it? Because you like safety and you like convenience and you like things to be calm, even though you don't like where you are. And if I was to ask you if in 3 years nothing changed, what would it look like? And you didn't like the answer to that question, that's not conflict, that's avoidance. Here's how we manage life in a state of constant dynamic conflict. Just different perspectives. It's the master 4 questions. When you ground out and you find yourself in a difficult situation and you've done all of the practices of good self-care, you're fueling well, you're hydrating well, you're moving well, your choices are solid, and your communication is clear, but you're finding yourself at a stuck point, you have to start with this one honest reflection. How am I contributing to this circumstance? If you're stuck at that 20-pound plateau and it's an easy one to use because it's a measurement, how do you figure it out? You food journal. Because we can talk ourselves all day long into what we think we're doing. But when we got to write it down, I tell you, it looks very differently. And you can see almost instantly where your plateau's coming from. When it is something that you are having a problem with interrelationally, how did I contribute to this situation? Goes a little deeper to, am I really listening to the other person or am I hearing to respond? Did I take a pause? Did I practice a pause to sit back and process? Remember that rest and digest we talked about? That applies to everything in life. Everything. Where are they coming from today? Maybe this isn't about me, and maybe because I took offense and I reacted, it just escalated things. Do I need to reapproach? That's question number 2, by the way. How can I make this better? So how did I contribute to this circumstance that I'm challenged by right now that's affecting my health and well-being? Number 2, how can I make this better? What in your control can you do? We're not talking about changing someone else's perspective, by the way. What in your control can you do? So we'll go back to the weight loss piece because it's measurable. When you look at your food journal and you see that maybe you fell out of structure. So the typical weight loss journey, you have to eat every 4 hours to fuel your body. And you cannot eat within 2 hours of eating something because you don't give your body any time to process it. And you look at your food journal and you see a lot of grazing, and maybe you see that your vegetables are really low, or maybe you see that your day starts really light, which makes you starve and eat at the latest time of your day, which is your slowest metabolism time. And what can I do? What can I contribute to change? Yeah. And it's make a plan. It's not eat better, right? Because we all know we could eat better, but you got to get down to the what can I do? What can I actually do here? And that's where we go wrong. We just create more desires. We don't actually get to the do. When it comes to conflict with other people, it's a little bit more complicated, right? Maybe you have an argument with a spouse, or you have an argument with a coworker. How did I contribute with this to this circumstance? Allows you to take responsibility to start an honest conversation. Hey, I just wanted to touch base with you for a second on our interaction yesterday. This is an example, by the way. I realized when I answered you, I really did not take the time to listen to you. And I just think that maybe we got here because I didn't understand where you were coming from. If you're open to it, I would like to listen to you. Could you share again with me what you were trying to tell me? That changes the course of all direction, and it lowers the defense. Instead of you made me feel like, right? Versus when you came into my office with more to do, I really felt the pressure and realized that I reacted to you. Can we revisit that? The last 2 questions are most important. Yeah. What did I learn, right? So first of all, how did I contribute to the situation? How can I make it better? What did I learn? Most importantly, what did I learn about myself? If I'm going back to the diet example, I learned that I talk myself into, when times get busy and things get a little bit comfortable, I talk myself into thinking that I've adopted the healthy habit. But quite honestly, when I stop paying attention, the drive-throughs come back in and the skipping breakfast comes back in. And then I get really frustrated with myself because I'm gaining the weight again and I don't like where I am. And so what I learned about myself is that maybe I need to go ahead again and put into my calendar every 3 months, I'm going to go ahead and just do a food journal, regardless of whether or not I'm happy with where I am, to assess whether or not the comforts are sneaking back in, and hopefully to catch me before I need a nutrition coach or a diet plan. On the relational side of things, what did I learn about myself? Well, that day when I had that problem with that spouse or that coworker, I had not really taken good care to get the sleep that I needed. I had not started my day with 10 minutes to assess my priorities. I was feeling overwhelmed and didn't practice the pause or regroup myself at all. And quite frankly, by the time they walked through my office, I had not eaten anything. I was hangry and I was over it. So no matter what they would have said or how they would have said, they were getting what they got. I learned about myself. What I learned about them is that actually they're a lot like me and they're under the same pressures as me and they're under the same stress as me. And the conflict was just a combination of both of us feeling like it. So, what do I need to let go of? That's number 4. Because we all walk around carrying a shit bag. It's a part of us, it's everything about us. And in that bag is every past experience and every failure and every we can't do it. And you know what we don't do that we really need to do? We need to just take a whole day and empty that crap bag onto the floor and figure out, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to still work on? What actually helps me out in my day-to-day life? What has value? But in interpersonal relationships, that crap bag is everything to do with the energy that we bring in, and the effectiveness is who we are in that space. We all have those people that we never really mesh well with. And if we trace it back, it generally has a starting point. And we took that starting point and we put it in, right in that bag, and we bring it in every single time. So when we think about growth in our own ability to create healthy boundaries, to say no without guilt, to prioritize ourselves instead of waiting until the absolute last available moment of the day to care about who we are and what we need, we have to address the things that we have refused to let go of that hold us back, because that impacts our self-value. I don't know about you, but I started this business, it was on my bedroom floor. As a woman, it's actually pretty incredible that 13 years later, I'm on this beautiful 1-acre campus and I get to sit on stages in front of hundreds to thousands of people doing what I love in the most energetic way that I love doing. And I never felt like I deserved it. I struggled with that word, deserve. It wasn't until I started practicing those 4 questions that I was able to finally start to empty the heavy weight of that bag, along with saying no without guilt, without shame, understanding and appreciating that I was just as important as they were, and doing it in a fashion that was kind and considerate of other individuals, that I could take a vacation day and not think about all the things I should have been doing. And I have a little tip for you on your wellness journey. You are never quite there. Whatever your hindrance is, you just learn to work with it better. It doesn't leave you. It doesn't magically disappear one day. That's not how this goes. It just becomes a whole part of loving who you are and all the good and bad things that have gotten you to this point. That's so essential to this journey. And a really good, valuable piece of all things you. And unfortunately, it's not something you just deal with once and you got it. It's kind of like that food journal. If you came to my house right now, my cupboards are clean. I got beans, tomatoes, quinoa, who even knows how to spell that, right? You open the refrigerator, there's nothing in there because most of our food, it all comes from our stove or our oven. In fact, my dad thinks we're poor because of it. I still struggle with my weight. I'll always be that 248-pound woman looking in the mirror. I sometimes hate the pictures, but I've learned to deal with it. And in our podcast series, we want to help you get right with you. Find your inner self and hug the crap out of her or him, if that's the case.
Sure.
So that you can allow yourself to find your voice, to live every day in your own value systems, whatever those look like. Not what I think they should look like, but what they look like to you, so that at the close of your days, you have some peace. You can rest. That's the important part of this, but one that we know of, life. Isn't that well-being? And look, there are times that things in our life happen that it takes from the very core of our being, and it does create and leave holes. But those holes are there to be filled with other experiences and growth and healing. I always say in fitness class, we're not sweating, we're leaking awesome to make room for more. That's mine, by the way. Copyrighted. It just comes down to, if it were perfect, we will all be bored. If the directions were easy, we wouldn't do them anyway. What are you willing to do? What have you learned? But where do you start? You can take all the notes you want and re-listen, but I'm going to say to you, now is the time for you to ask yourself, what applies to me? Do I need to better find my voice so that I can have better boundaries, so that I can take better care of myself? So many women who come to see me for food-related problems always say, well, I don't cook vegetables because my husband doesn't really like them. And I think to myself, well, what does cooking vegetables have to do with what your husband likes? He doesn't have to eat them, right? We resist doing a lot of things that we want to do because we worry about whether or not other people like them. But we never ask. We never use our voice. Like with our friends, hey, you know what? I don't like to go out to eat all of the time. Have you ever decided about maybe we could just meet for lunch in a park? Maybe they don't have to go for a walk with you, but you can go for a walk in the park before you meet them, sit at the picnic table and have lunch. You have taken care of yourself. You have found your voice. When somebody says something to you that is personally offensive, and you practice the pause and you assess whether or not the offense is really, truly intentional, or if the offense is something that perhaps you misunderstood because of where you are, you can check in with yourself. So as you go through this journey, coming back to you and asking yourself those 4 questions. How did I contribute to this? How can I make it better? What have I learned? And what do I need to let go of? Ensures that you don't continue to carry experiences forward into a life that is full of opportunities when you're making space for it. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about practicing self-awareness and then making a decision to put small shifts of action into place, celebrating them, recognizing how they're changing you, and then building upon those base ideas, concepts, and actions to get more of what you want. It's cumulative, much like exercise. And I think that's an important way to end this podcast series as we go into teaching you how to make more room. Stay committed to the slow and steady progress. Be consistent as you enter different seasons of your life and you face different challenges and you become a different person. And be open to the compassionate and empathetic knowledge, because it's knowledge that is coming into you from your experiences in your world with other people, so that you can find peace and balance season by season. Thank you for spending the time with me. I hope to see you in the future.